I want you to understand that you're not broke. You just need to look at money a completely different way. You have to get new eyes to see what's really going on with money. You know, when I hear people say they have a learning disability, I often tell them, you don't have a learning disability, you have an ability to learn differently. We have to think differently about money. And I want you to understand by the end of this episode, I'm going to teach you some distinct things you need to know to save you money, reduce your stress, and to give you more control of your financial future. I want to share some things I've learned over my last 2 decades of building companies and 7 times building 7-figure businesses. And, really having to understand, what does it really mean to keep all of the cash going the right way? And the things we do in business is so important for the business of you. Making sure you understand that you yourself are a business in the sense of having to be financially responsible and making sure you're doing the proper things with your money. I remember many times seeing my business back against the wall and having to look at the numbers and understanding what actually happened and what actually went wrong. Going through many economic crises and managing through some of the most difficult times in the world in business. I've seen how this translates to managing difficult things in our life. The things we have to deal with, the unexpected curveballs, all the unexpected things that come up. Now, you might be thinking, but what does it have to do with me? How can this apply to me? Is there something different in what I'm speaking about and what's actually going on for you? Maybe you might feel, I don't have enough money to even manage it the right way, or I have this under control because I don't really see a problem. Even though I know I could do better, I don't think it's as urgent. Well, I want to submit to you that as you go on a journey with me now, I'm going to explain to you 3 critical mistakes that people make every single day. And if they could just fix these mistakes, it would change everything that they know about money and cause them to have the things that they really want in life, all because they manage what they have the right way. Let's get into it. All right, it's time to jump into mistake number 1, and that is not realizing that money is silent until you give it a voice. So we have to really begin to understand that if you don't have a mechanism that gives your money a way of speaking to you, you'll always be in a situation in which things are happening that you don't know are happening. Now, when you think about certain games where you are supposed to act things out and you're not supposed to speak, I want you to imagine that your money has a muzzle over its mouth. It can't talk and it's trying to communicate to you, but it's unable to really get the message across. Now, you might be thinking, how does this affect me? How does this actually impact how I live? Well, the reality is, I want you to think about if someone actually broke into your house silently, and there's a difference between a thief and a robber. A robber comes and takes something by force. A thief, they do it in a covert way that you would never know, and they try to take it from you without you knowing. Imagine a thief came into your house, never said a word, and just kept taking money out of your bank account or your wallet or your purse every single night. And you didn't realize until much later, because it was just $1 here and $5 here and $10 there, $50 there. You didn't realize till later the impact. Well, this is a reality in most people's lives. We end up in a situation where, because our money can't yell and say, hey, something's wrong, something's going on, we are unable to appreciate what is actually taking place. Now, I want you to stay tuned, because later I'm going to tell you what I think is the absolute best solution to make sure you always know what's going on with your money. If you don't have the right tool, you can't build the right house. And we're trying to build a house that has financial responsibility built into it, and it becomes a way of life. Now, let me go to my whiteboard for a minute. When you think about all the things that we deal with, and we may be over here just living our best life, and we feel like everything is good. We got some trees here, the birds are chirping, right? The sun is beaming. The reality is, when we look on the other side, though, of this wall and we start dealing with real life. What is actually happening in real life? So this is maybe how I feel, and this is reality. So the reality is, if I consider my financial situation like a big bucket, and this big bucket has water in it, but I don't understand that in this bucket, there's these holes that are in the bucket. And because of that, outside of this, we have water that's beginning to leak out. Now, how's this water leaking out? Imagine how many times we're in situations where we sign up for a subscription and that subscription was meaningful at the time. You might be into entertainment and you have a Netflix account, but you also got a Stars account, and then you got a Hulu account. And you're literally going to the same apps, watching the same stuff, and you're keeping this thing because of something that you wanted to see, a particular, TV show or whatever that was only on that app, but that, series has been over and there's no other reason that you even should have that, but you keep paying this monthly fee. This is the type of stuff that begins to happen, right? And you don't actually see it happening. Then we have the whole battle between wants versus needs. So we also have the situation of losing money because I've become unconscious of the difference between a want and a need. And because a want feels like a need, I begin to blur the two together, and I start to end up in a situation where I don't realize how the lack of consciousness of something being a want, which is a lesser priority, than a need, which is a higher priority. Because I lose sight of that, I also allow more money to leave me than is necessary. Now, here's another key thing that often is overlooked, but this is the difference between means versus values. Now, what do I mean means versus values? And I've had to learn this over time, in managing my household and managing several companies throughout my life. This is a very important subject, and when I'm trying to really work with people and help people, when you hear this, I want you to think deeply about what I'm about to say, because these are the things that people don't talk about, and this is a big mistake that many people make. Your means is what most people tell you that you should live within. You should live within your means. But few people tell you that what you should actually be doing is living within your values. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. What is a value? A value is something that drives our real innermost being. It's what we feel is most important because of what we believe. It's the reason that even though there might be a decision you need to make that on the surface looks one way, your values can cause you to make a different decision because of what you believe. Now, there are some people who, because of their values, they purchase things a certain way because they were raised a certain way to think a certain way about money or a particular item. There are some people who only think about their means, and they say as long as there's money in the account to do it, it's okay to do it. Well, this is another way to really lose a lot of money, because a loss of money is whenever the money's not there to do the thing most important to us. If I have too much money being spent because it's within my means, there's going to be times where the things that I value also require money, and I won't have enough money to do those things that I say I value. So this is why means versus values is a very important thing. Don't just live within your means. Think about what is important to you. Think about your values and align your financial decisions around that value. This is so, so important. Now, I want you to consider for a minute, when you think about spending, now, I want you to consider something you like to spend money on, right? Let me know in the chat some of your favorite things you like to spend money on, right? You might be into music. You might be into art. You might be into cycling. You might be into gardening. You might be into some specific hobby. You might like fixing on cars. What is the things that you like to spend money on? And this is very important because when we think about spending, we have to think about ourselves. We can't just think about spending as if it's this separate thing that stands alone and just happens to us. Spending starts with us. And that brings me to another leak here, which is emotional spending. Emotional spending. Emotional spending is spending that is resulting from a feeling that I have. And we want to be able to realize that I have to manage my feelings before I could ever manage my money. Because my feelings is driving what I do with my money. So sometimes I want you to consider for a minute, we are asking the wrong question potentially. We're saying, how can I get better at managing money? But we're forgetting to say, how can I get better at managing me? When I begin to learn how to manage my emotions and I begin to understand what I feel, I can then make a conscious decision of if I want to allow those feelings to dictate my spending or if I want to harness those feelings and control my spending, depending on the circumstance or situation. It's not all times that you feel something that you want to do and it's wrong to do it. But there is some times that we feel we want to do something and it's actually hurting you financially to do it. So when you look at this diagram, we can see when you move from understanding the difference between the feeling that I have and the reality of what's happening. The key is when I started this off saying that we want to give our money a voice. If there's no way for our money to speak back to us, to let us know if something is urgent, right? To let us know if something is wrong, we're going to always be in a situation where the money is managing itself. It's become a latchkey kid that has had to figure it out on its own without any parenting. We are supposed to be the parental support of our money. Now, later in this episode, I'm going to tell you something that is so critical about actually seeing money get a voice and understanding this leak at a deeper level. I'm going to show you how this really impacts us across time. But when you start seeing how it impacts over time, you start realizing what seemed like a leak could actually be a waterfall. Stay tuned to hear more about that later. Now, it's time to go into mistake number 2. All right, let's dive into mistake number 2. And mistake number 2 is not realizing the long-term impact of small changes over time. Now, I want you to imagine something for a minute. Let's go back to an example of water and filling something up. And I want you to consider for a minute, let's go to the whiteboard. I want you to think about this for a minute. What if I had a container and in this container, it was empty, right? And in this empty container, let's say that we have some sort of faucet that we'll just say is here, and this faucet comes out and is able to release water into this container. And let's just say someone forgot to turn it off, okay? And so there's a drip that is coming into this container. Now, we know that because there is no outlet, right? Because there is a floor here, right? So to speak, where you can't go any lower, this container has a floor. What will happen is that we will start to see an accumulation of water. Now, we know what we would begin to look at is we would have a certain amount of time that would determine the actual let's say, the level of volume, right? So volume is how you measure how to fill something up, length times width times height. So time would dictate the volume. So the more time passes, the more volume or filling of this container would take place. Now, the other thing we can glean from this example is when we think about the drip of the faucet, we also understand that speed, right? The speed of the drip will then also impact the time, right? So if the speed is faster, then in less time, we would be filling up the volume of the container, okay? So I want you to understand this. Now, one of the things that I want you to see is if this container represents our bank account, let's say, okay, or let's even say, let's say that when we think about this container, if I have a bank account, and let's say that this container is not supposed to, maybe have water in it. It's a container, but it's not supposed to have water in it. It represents my bank accounts. There's something coming into this container. But because this container is large enough, maybe I don't notice this water that's getting into the container. Let's look at this water as let's look at this as our spending. But I can't really see it because it's in the container. I don't really see it. Now, over time, this is going to get larger and larger and larger. The key is, though, if my bank account is big enough, it stops me from seeing the problem. Maybe I don't notice anything because nothing's coming out of the bucket. So this is again where sometimes the amount of money you have hides the amount of money that you're losing. Because there's a container that houses cash, sometimes it hides the overtime impact of money that's actually being lost. Now, I want you to notice something. If we had a situation where the water was way up here when we started, so it wouldn't take that much of the drips to start immediately seeing water starting to come out, right? Because the container has already got so much water in it, it just takes a little bit more. I have a swimming pool, and if the swimming pool is all filled up, and if you don't have some sort of mechanism to balance the amount of water in the pool, then it just takes a little water before that water is overflowing the pool because the pool is filled up. So this is why when you are already in a situation where your money is already kind of maxed out and then you spend this money and it begins to come out of the container, then you instantly can see, you'll see the pain a lot faster. But if you got enough room in that container, it will hide what's actually happening over time. So let's say I'm going to do a different color here. Let's do a darker blue. Let's say we normally are about here in the container, but let's say this represents a loss of $500 every month. $500 a month. Well, we know if we keep that pattern, this actually translates to $6,000 a year. It accumulates very fast. What's so dangerous is if I have my container big enough, I could even waste even more money, still not see it, right? And end up in a situation where now I'm wasting even more money, right? And these numbers are just going up. Now, I want to introduce something else that's even more serious. Imagine that my spending that is going into this container and it's not supposed to go in there. Imagine that now everything is running over, right? I'm spending more than my container can hold, right? I'm starting to spend more. Now, one of the things that is also dangerous about this is when we use credit, credit gives us a false sense of a container that is bigger, right? So then I'm overspending, but now my container looks even bigger because my credit card says that I have a credit limit and they're allowing me to spend money that I don't have. So my container here in black has to pay for the container in red eventually. But because of monthly payments, I am unable to see the condition of this money that is falling out of the container because, again, now I have a false container that makes me feel I'm still okay. Now, let me just go to a whole nother level here. What if, let's get another color here. What if this whole container is inside of a room and you can't even see inside the room? Well, now, not only is all this going on and you're in danger of flooding that room, right, with water, if we were using a water example, you are unaware until that water gets so bad that it's starting to fill up this room, right? And water is all over the place and it's a mess. This is what happens with our finances often. We don't recognize what's happening until it becomes a mess. I've seen this so many times in business as well as personally, where because the containers that we hold our money in, we don't go in to understand what's happening in there, it hides the problem. I often talk about this when I talk about different forms of waste in business operations. We talk about the waste of inventory. And I often tell people, when you think about having more inventory than you need, then you care less about quality when you have more inventory. So if you were a chocolate addict and you love M&Ms and you had 1 million bags of M&Ms, you open one bag and there's only one defective out of all the bags. You don't really care because you have so many. But if you're a chocolate addict, you only got one bag of M&Ms and it's only got 10 M&Ms in there and 2 of them are defective, you ready to call the supplier, find out what went wrong, say this isn't fair, this is my last chocolate to my name, this didn't come right, what happened? You want to know what went on because you value that it was something that was in error or something that wasn't right because you don't have extra to cover it. So what we have to understand, we want to make sure we look inside of this container and understand what's happening over time. Because over time, there's something happening and there's a drain that's draining. And now, as I said earlier, that leak becomes a waterfall. Now, when you think about all of this, you have to hear mistake number 3. Because no matter what we talk about, if you don't do this, nothing really matters. Let's get into mistake number 3. All right, it's time to jump into mistake number 3, and I really want you to listen closely at this because this is a mistake that most people make, and it's one of the key reasons that so many people mismanage their money. One of the key reasons that people mismanage money is because they're trying to manage money. Mistake number 3 is to realize that it's not about managing money. It's about building a money system. When you build a system related to your money, then the system will manage the money. And you will be able to be a facilitator and an overseer of the process to ensure the system is working. Now, this is very true even when you think about entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are people who solve problems. And many times people think that they're, really have made it because they're called an entrepreneur. Anyone can go down to their city officials or what have you and become an entrepreneur. You can file paperwork. You can solve a problem. You can invent something. But this doesn't mean you're able to run a business. This is the problem with people who are good cooks and think they can open a restaurant. This is the issue with people who are good at a specific skill and think that that translates to a business. See, an entrepreneur is one who solves problems, whereas a CEO is one who builds systems that solve those problems. And those systems run the business. And you must understand, if you are going to run the business of you must put a money system in place that actually helps you to do it. So what would a good money system entail? Let's go to the whiteboard and let me explain to you 4 critical elements to a money system. So the first thing I want to call out is we need money awareness. Money awareness. And then I'm going to come back to each of these. We need money organization. Money organization. This is also extremely important. So make sure and jot these down. Then we need money control. Money control. Now, this is different than organization. We're going to explain why. And then we need money performance. Now, these are very distinct things that a good money system would entail. Now, make sure you stay to the end because I'm going to actually demo to you the most fascinating tool that we use here at URCO to build your money system. So if you want to know about a real tool and see how it works, you do not want to miss that. Don't miss seeing how that all looks and how it all works. Now, I want to kind of break these down. I want you to understand something about money awareness. Now, money awareness is, I'm going to use a different color here just to make it stand out a little bit. Money awareness is about being able to see, right? Being able to see what is actually going on. So when I am aware of what is happening, I'm in a situation and I'm empowered to be able to make a real healthy decision about my money. So one of the first issues we have is just, are we even aware of what is going on? Now, what are some things we want to be aware of? So we want to be aware of one really critical thing is money in versus money out. This is really the name of the game. I don't care how fancy you want to get. How much money is coming in, how much money is going out? I often have said it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And what you get to keep is a direct result of how much came in versus went out. No matter how high up you go in any company, any business, you can't get away from that. Money in versus money out. We want to really understand that. We also want to really understand we have to be aware of our spending. We must know, what is money being spent on? And is it being spent on what I have determined as the thing that it should be spent on? I have to be aware of that actually taking place. I also have to be aware, I'll just say bills, but really bills is planned spending. But I have to be aware of that because these are things that are actually every day a threat to me keeping my money. So anything that takes money from me, if we look at a bill as like a person who comes and takes from us, we want to be aware of when that happens so that we're always, properly positioned to be able to handle when that actually takes place. So we must see ourselves as aware of when these things are coming to take things from us. It shouldn't just happen and then later we look at the result. We want to know, right, when this is going to happen. Let's move into the next area here in our money system. So we went into one aspect here. Let's go to the second aspect, which is money organization. Now, when you think about money organization, I want you to think about account management. Account management. This is one of the most powerful tools that you can use to be responsible with your money and protect your money. So I want you to really lean in right now. I want you to really listen to what I'm about to say. I'm going to tell you something that so many people don't do. They don't take this extra step. And because of this, they make so many mistakes with their money. The result of what I'm going to tell you right now is the thing that will cause you to have money when you need it, be able to have more joy in your life when you really need the money to spend towards joy. It'll help you to make sure you don't spend money you don't have. It's all about thinking differently about what an account is for. Now, we call it a bank account. But once you think about the word account, in other words, I have to give an account for things I'm responsible for. So think about a bank account as something I have to give an account for why money went into that account and why money came out. I'm responsible to give an account of what happened in that bank account, right? So there's some critical accounts that I always like to call out. And what you want to do, you want to be able to give your accounts a voice. Now, what voice can an account have? Well, it's, actually when you think about it, what do accounts tell us? Accounts tell us what your current balance is. That current balance is a message. That current balance is coaching. That current balance is a limit. That current balance is a clear line of authority of what we can and cannot do. So what do we want to do? We want to think about accounts like this. We should all have what's called survival accounts. These are accounts we use to pay our bills. These are the accounts we use to pay the things that are necessities of life. Very important. Everyone should also have savings accounts. So savings is what we're planning for emergencies, things that can come up, right? We save so that we have things for a time that might come up in which we cannot survive from our survival account. Savings is not supposed to be something we just accumulate in a bank account. We want enough in there to handle emergencies. This is really what that is for. The next thing I want to call out is something I call a sport account. And you can even call this a fun account. And this is, again, we don't mean sport as in basketball, football. We mean sport as in like sport jacket or sports car. Something that is fun, something that you want to do. You must have an account that actually has money in it for that purpose. So you don't have to ask anyone else if you can spend this money and not hurt yourself, because the account itself is speaking to you because you've organized it. We also have what I love to call a SOAR account. This brings us back to the true purpose of money. The true purpose of money is to grow money. Now, low income thinking thinks the purpose of money is to pay bills. More middle class thinking is that the purpose of money is to pay bills on time, to have a good credit score. But the wealthy mindset is to actually make money grow, to get your money to have babies, to have children. This is the thinking, right? So when you consider this is SOAR only happens if you have money in an account that is built to invest, to grow your money. Very, very important. And lastly, everyone should have a spiritual account. And this is something that's for charity, whatever is important to you, something that allows you to give back, because this allows you to be a complete person when you begin to do that. Very, very important. Now, let's go to the other element here. The other element is money control. Money control, this has to do with a financial plan. And many times when we think about a financial plan, we're really thinking about the word budget. But a budget is simply a financial plan that really says, I am forecasting how things should be so that I can determine if things went the way that they should have went. So keep this in mind. Money control begins when I have a forecast to compare to an actual. That's when, we really begin to have control, because the controls become the plan that I forecasted. And when I make that plan and I look at what actually happens, I can make a decisions now that determine if I stay under control or not. How can I know something is out of control unless I have a standard? So when you have a standardless approach to managing money, you're out of control. There's no rules. There's no rules of how much to spend on that particular item, on that particular expense, on that particular thing that you do or that you like. It's like an individual. I often talk about this when I'm improving operations. A pole vaulter who comes and they put their pole in the ground and they, vault over a particular height. But imagine a pole vaulter with no bar there to jump over. Because there's no standard, there's no way to know how high they jump. There's no way to know if you're winning or losing. Imagine a game, a sport with no scoreboard. Imagine no out of bounds lines in basketball, or to play volleyball without a net. Just get the visual of that, right? It just seems crazy, insane. Why? Because there's no standard. So when you have a standard, control begins to happen and winning is possible, right? Now, let's go back here. Last but not least, money performance. We have to know, are we doing poorly? Are we doing a fair job? Are we doing good? Are we doing excellent? And we must know, what are the measures, right? What is it that needs to be measured? So where should I be concerned about my performance of, actually making sure my money is doing the right things? Until I'm really clear on that, then I'm unable to really say for sure that I'm performing well. So we must know what the rules are, and we then must have a way of determining, am I doing well or not as it relates to those rules? Now, I want to take a moment. I want to show you what I feel is one of the most powerful tools to help you manage your money at the highest level. All right, I'm so excited to tell you about this because here at CEO, one of the flagship tools that people use that are in our memberships and programs is an application called Money CEO. And Money CEO actually helps you become the CEO of your money. And I just want to show you a few things, and I have time to go all into all the details of how it works. But I want to just show you some of those key things I said in that system, how you can use a tool like this. Now, we're going to jump in. I'm going to pull up a demo account. Now, this isn't my account. This is John Doe. And you can see a little dashboard here where I can see the total cash in all of my bank accounts. I can even collapse that down to really see what accounts is making up that money. I see how many bills are remaining this particular month and the credit card balances that I have and total investment. So real quickly, what I have here is awareness, right? Awareness. Also, I want you to see that I see all my recent transactions, and I also can see how money in and money out is faring in the race. So this is a race that we go through every single month. And we're trying to make sure by the end of that month that there's more money in than money out. Now we know there's too many people today that have more months left at the end of their money, right? Instead of having more money at the end of the month. And when you start to see these things, become aware, it helps you to be able to see that. Now, also, really quickly, you can see down below, when I think about the categories of spending and the categories of money coming in, how money is coming in, how it's going out, and also, what are the things this week that I'm paying for? and being able to acknowledge that because it's going to be important to manage performance later. This is all just on the homepage dashboard, just to know, what's going on. So this has to do with money awareness, and there's so many things we could, go into here with Money CO, but just be aware. This is a great example of money awareness. Another thing I want to show you, let's talk about money organization. Now, notice here with these bank accounts, I can denote here on the side, what type of account is it? Is it survival? Is it SOAR? Is it savings, right? So I can actually do that, and I can go look at my account strategy. And I want you to notice this here. So I can actually make my plan in my account organization plan to say, I have $9,000 coming in. I want 50% of that to go into my survival account. And then I want 20% to go into my savings, 10% to go into my sport, 10% into my SOAR, and 10% into my spiritual. So if this was the case, what's so beautiful about this is that Money CO helps you keep track of exactly what you should be transferring to those bank accounts so that you can actually have the proper organization of your money. So when you do this, all the money really is going to go into your survival account, but then you're going to transfer money out into those accounts every month, and you have these percentages to help you out of every paycheck. You know what should be going in these accounts. What happens though is at the bottom, you start to build up money in these accounts, and you can actually see what bank accounts contributed to this specific type of account. And what is this telling you? You actually know what you can do, right? So you probably got a little bit too much money in your survival account here, right? You need to move some of that over to SOAR unless you got some serious expenses. But you can start moving money around and understanding what you should be doing. And you can start seeing that I know, like, I could go have $129,000 worth of fun and it not hurt my money system, because I've put money in there responsibly and let it accumulate so that that account can speak to me now about what I can do. This is money organization. All right, let's show another example here. I want you to understand, when we go into this plan area, it's so beautiful to actually begin to develop a plan. So when you put a plan in place and you know how much money is planned to come in and planned to go out, now control is possible, as we talked about earlier. I can begin to see what was supposed to happen with my money in items, my money out items, and I can determine what items I want to call out and be more careful with from a budgeting perspective, and then there's just everything else. So Money CO makes it so easy to be able to call out things that you want to control and how to maximize those opportunities. And what's so beautiful is we can go even deeper here into the calendar here, and I can see what the planned money in is for this year and money out that I wanted to spend for the whole year, and then see as of right now, where am I at with my money in year to date? And am I winning or losing in my pursuit of getting to that particular goal? In this case, John is winning on every category. He's headed in the right direction. It looks at where you should be by now to get to where you're supposed to be by the end of the year. Then below, you can see all of the plan versus actual that happened month by month. And you can look at, and some of these you see here, the different colors denote on this particular day, maybe more money went out than came in. So it's orange. Now, I want you to also notice something pretty cool. I can click over to spreadsheet view and I can see actual versus plan from a spreadsheet view. When times get tough, we all want to go back to the spreadsheet. Like, where's my Excel? Where's my Google Sheets? Forget it all. I just want to I just want to see what's going on. Well, to be able to do that in this tool and to understand what has already actually happened, and if you can see with the red and green arrows, if I did worse or better from the last month, see where I'm currently at, but I can also see my plan. What is supposed to happen in the future? And I can adjust that plan as well. So all of this has to do with money control. Now, let's talk a little bit about money performance. There's so much in here I don't have time to go into today, but let's look at the coaching to be able to see if I'm doing excellent or not in a particular area, if I'm doing need improvement, if I'm doing fair, if I'm doing good. I'm actually so you can see a little summary here about different, levels of financial discipline. And if you follow this, your credit score is going to go up, you're going to qualify for more loans, and you're going to grow wealth. It's all built in. It's already, automated to tell you what you need to do. So I want you to see here, I could go to different forms of things I'm rated on: essential spending, how much money is going toward essentials; credit spending, how much cushion I have for my household if something went wrong, in terms of my survival, or we sometimes call it our household account; emergency cash for emergencies, a lot of your savings; how much you're keeping your money in your savings, and the extent to which you're being disciplined about allowing it to really be savings; how much of your income is going to debt, and are you paying your bills on time? All of that is managed here. So imagine if I pull up this summary and I can see where I'm doing good and where I'm not doing so good. This gives me the performance I need to know that I'm doing well in my money system or not. It tells me where I might need to do better and where I might need to improve. We can see right here that credit spending is probably the area that John could make the most improvement, but this is what it's all about: to understand how you're performing, what is actually going on. And, there's things like spending as well, where I can see what percentage of my money is going where. This also helps me understand what is going on and how it's impacting the way that I do things. And so these are so many wonderful things. You heard me talk about needs and wants. I won't go into this, but it actually gets down into your needs and wants and understanding what's actually happening with how much money is going toward needs and want, or getting into wealth and understanding what's happening from a wealth perspective, looking at net worth, cash flow. All of this is just so much wonderful information. How much of my income is passive versus active income? Because the goal is to get my passive income to exceed my expenses one day if I really want to live wealth free. And even looking at my taxes and how to write things off. I just gave you some extra stuff there just for free because I get so excited about Money CEO. So you have heard about a money system, and now it is time for me to give you some final thoughts. I hope you see that there are some critical things we all can do to take control of our money and actually make a difference in generating wealth, having less stress about money, and actually doing things that grow our wealth. Now, I want you to not just watch this as an episode. Let's think of some real things you can do right now. Do you know what your top 10 expenses are right now personally? What are the top 10 things that your money is being spent on? Do you know how many subscriptions you have and where you might be actually spending more than you should on those actual subscriptions? Are you really clear on the specific things that you want your money to go to over the next 6 months because of your values and what's important to you right now? What are you doing right now in your life? How have you aligned a financial plan to the things you're doing in your life right now? I want you to also really take a very, very deep, dive into really considering this critical fact. How much money do you need to live the life that you want? Now, when we really think about the life that we want, of course, we all want sky's the limit. But I want you to think about just right now where you're at. What could give you just that little space that you need to be able to have a well-rounded experience of life that you can have right now? What would be the tweak? What would be the savings you need or the increase in income? You should know what these numbers are, because this gives you a guide and it allows your finances to become a roadmap to the life that you want. Even if you don't have it now, it lets you know what you need to make more of and what you want to try to reduce to be able to get to that place in life that you want to get to. You have to be intentional about what you really want. Now, I want to give you a special invitation. If you want a tool that helps do a lot of that for you and more, I want to welcome you to find out more about Money CEO. We'll put something in the description just for you to, maybe get a chance to kick the tires and see if it's something that could be useful to you. But URCO is always creating tools that give you more freedom. And I know you will love using this tool to help you with all that we talked about in this episode. Now, don't just leave though. Make sure you leave a comment. Let me know some things that you got out of this. What stood out to you? What are some things that you really feel that you could take right now and do something with? Do you have any stories to share? Is there anything that you've seen about money that you could add that maybe I didn't mention? Let me know what you got out of this and share with us, because we are all together on the journey of freedom, and how we manage our money is a big part of it. Until next time, I'm Michael Lee Parker. Keep striving for the ultimate freedom. I'll see you next time.